Mike Esneault, and welcome to the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge's AC23 Plus Artist Legacy Series podcast. This is a series where we talk to artists who are doing amazing things in the areas of the arts, including performance, education, production, as well as arts advocacy. We record this series in the Virginia and John Nolan Black Box Studio, as well as in the Jan and Bill Grimes recording studio here at the Carrie Siraj Community Arts Center. Be sure to visit artsbr.org for more information on all the great things we are doing here at the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. Hope you enjoyed the podcast series, and thanks for tuning in.
All right, I'd like to welcome all of our AC23 Plus Artist Legacy Series listeners and followers, viewers. Today is an extra special session for myself because I have two amazing musicians, legendary musicians in the world of jazz who I've followed really since the mid-'80s for me, Mr. Russell Ferrante and Mr. Bob Mintzer. And welcome, guys. Welcome to Baton Rouge.
Good to be here.
Of course, y'all are here because y'all have a concert tonight. Y'all are playing at the Manship Theater as part of, it's the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge and Manship Theater's co-production of our Jazz Master Series. And we're very glad to have you guys. And then tonight's sort of extra special, too, because you have a guest, two-time Grammy-winning Kurt Elling on vocals, who you guys worked with previously, but really excited about that. And, of course, the regular band is here, so you have Will Kennedy on drums and Dane Alderson on bass. So I'm going to jump right into the weeds because I'm curious about some stuff because I've listened to you guys for so long, and not just with the Yellowjackets, but I've followed, the first time I heard you, Bob, was with, you were on a Vince Mendoza album called Start Here, and you played clarinet, bass clarinet, tenor, and soprano. And then I as I guess as you do when you get into this music, you go down the rabbit hole and just look at all the things you've done. And then, of course, you, Russ, with the Yellowjackets. And actually, one of the first times I heard you was you were doing a Pat Coyle album produced by Lyle Mays and playing synths on that.
Right.
That was probably early 90s, maybe.
Yeah, or older. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one thing about y'all's music, particularly the Yellowjackets, but also the arranging that you guys do, it's all fairly complicated music. I mean, it's intricate and a lot of sophistication, and I'm just curious, when y'all do these things, because I know when y'all get on stage, there's going to be no music, no sheet music.
Except for Kurt's music.
Okay, well, there's an
different
exception.
tonight.
Yeah. This will be a little unique. Yeah.
But that is just how do you guys prep for that? Like, do y'all do extensive rehearsals before, or y'all just, get it together at sound check? Like, how does that come together? Especially since y'all have such a long history of music.
Well, we could each answer that, but we don't usually, we're not able to rehearse that much because Dane lives in Charlottesville, Virginia, so he's on the other coast. Bob and I are in the Los Angeles area. Will's in Texas, although he does, he teaches at USC in Los Angeles, so he's there a fair amount.
Gotcha.
But to answer your question, when we're getting ready to do a recording, everyone gathers music together, usually makes a nice demo, tries to prepare a clear chart, and then we do individual homework, and then maybe we'll get a couple days, 2 at the most 3 days to rehearse, and then we record in 2 or 3 days, and then before we play the music live, then we've got to, again, do some individual practicing and working on it on our own. And that it is challenging because the music can be kind of complex, and but it eventually comes together. And I don't think we ever use music. We don't have charts for our music ever.
That was a question I was wondering.
Yeah, no. I mean, and actually, it was one of the things that was really interesting when Dane Alderson auditioned for the band. Jim Haslip had left, and Felix Pastorius played a couple of years. But then we saw Dane on a YouTube clip, and we invited him to play a gig, and we sent him a bunch of music. He had a few weeks, and he showed up before the first gig we had a short rehearsal, and he had memorized everything. There were about 15 tunes, and as he tells it, if you don't have your head in the music, you're able to really key in on the other musicians, catch the cues, really engage. Because sometimes when you're looking at music, it's a distraction.
But you're saying that when you guys put the tunes together, it starts from you're not presenting charts even in the beginning.
Oh, well, when we're learning the music,
Oh, you
we
are?
are.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And in the studio, generally, we have music. We haven't yet memorized the stuff.
Right. And are those tunes, like if you write a tune, Bob, or you write a tune, Russ, is it more or less fully formed when y'all go into the studio, or is there any sort of, I know everybody brings something to the music, but
I think changes take place in the rehearsal process. I mean, we each individually have an idea of how a song should go, but when it's presented to the band and we all get together to play it, changes inevitably occur. Just everybody sort of has an idea or two of how things could be, maybe a little different.
right.
And it's an interesting process. I mean, you forfeit your ideas to the committee, basically, and it's kind of fun to see where it goes, based on what everybody feels about the music.
Right. Right.
But I wanted to add, we record the music, we still don't maybe know it by heart, but then we sort of determine, if a new recording comes out, we want to play that music, of course. So we do individual homework, and then we'll run a tune at sound check, maybe a couple of sound checks in a row before we feel like it's ready to perform. So, but we don't rehearse per se. It's just like a quick sound check. We sort of sneak in some rehearsal at sound checks generally.
That's pretty astounding. Again, it's not like you're just calling a tune and playing a head chart. I mean, these are complicated arrangements, and y'all are able to do
They
that.
are,
Yeah.
but there's the melodies are stick to the ribs kind of melodies, I think,
Right.
and somehow they're not that hard to retain.
Right.
You-
Yeah.
I was going to say, what's funny now, the repertoire, it morphs over the years, and when different members join, certain tunes get left behind and other ones kind of. So we maybe have, I don't know, I would say 50 or plus tunes, and we try to make a different set every night. But
Oh, do you?
yeah, and just pick different songs. But sometimes we'll pick songs we haven't played in a while, or maybe the band won't be working for a couple months, and then we show up, and it's always an adventure to call a tune that maybe we haven't played in a while, but just to really keep everyone on their toes and not fall into some just set pat thing. We do
Right.
not want it to be that.
Right.
And it's a funny experience, at least for me, where we may not have played a song for months, and I can't even conceive of what it sounds like. And, it's almost like, can you tell me what the first note is? And once I start, I'm somehow swept up in the momentum,
Right.
and I've managed to get through it somehow. I don't know how. It's inexplainable, other than, there's
Do
a
you
long...
have a photographic memory, or like?
No, I don't. But I retain musical information more
Right.
than most. What's your name again?
Mine.
But something about, I think, just the longevity of this band and the relationship we have is such that at least I feel, I feel confident, like it's going to be okay. Even if I initially think, I hope I remember this song, but somehow always do.
Yeah. Well, y'all put out the 27th album, Fasten Up.
Right?
Are y'all going to be playing some of that music tonight?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been listening to that, and just a musician who loves the craft of it. I got questions like, "Coming Home Baby." You really reharmed that quite a bit. Added a bridge to basically a minor 12-bar blues.
Right.
What is and it's extremely harmonically complex, or just a lot of harmony going on that's far removed from the original.
Okay.
So, I'm curious. Like, how do you do that? Like, are you at the piano doing that usually,
No.
or no? That surprises me.
I've played a good deal of piano, so it's sort of that, information is in me. And, I do a lot of arranging. I'm a big band guy. I conduct a radio band in Germany. I've had my own big band for years. So I look at it as like just seasoning. I mean, it's just a real simple tune, a great melody, but I sprinkled a little bit of, just texture harmonically into it. And, I mean, it's not that far out, really. It's just, again, like seasoning is the way I look at it. Just sort of maintain the character of the tune, but add a little something to it.
Yeah. Well, I love the album. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And y'all bring in, is it Raoul Madon on a tune where it kind of reminded me of some of, this is a question I had for you as well, the singing without lyrics thing that I was so familiar with, like with Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays and those guys. But is that a fun thing to write for? Like when you have a voice like that, or like a Kurt Elling, where really use the voice as an instrument,
Right.
and not just singing lyrics.
Yes,
like a
yeah.
standard.
Yeah, we've done a little bit of that in the past with Bobby McFerrin. We've worked with him on in a few different settings, and so we're familiar with that addition to the band. It really, it adds another flavor to the music.
Right.
And with Raoul, we recorded the song, and we knew we wanted to have him play on it as well, but we weren't quite sure exactly what he was going to do. So we sent him the track, and with just minimal guidance, and just let him do his thing, and he found just the right stuff.
Oh, it sounds beautiful.
He's a fantastic musician. We were going to do some touring with him in Europe, and it didn't quite work out this coming spring, but we were able to get him on this recording, and it was a real treat.
Well, going back to the vocalist thing, so you guys have Kurt Elling tonight, and I've followed him for a long time. I find it interesting, the connections, because you're going to be doing some of the music of Weather Report, and he's added lyrics to many of these tunes, Wayne Shorter tunes. But just the connection of the Yellowjackets to Weather Report. Of course, you worked with Jaco for over 2 years,
2 years.
right? And then Felix Pastorius being in the band.
Yeah, that's
and then
true,
Peter
yeah.
Erskine being in the Yellowjackets.
That's right.
So, can you speak to that a little bit, just about the what does that music mean to you guys?
Oh, Weather Report was a fantastic band. I mean, they started back in the early '70s, and those records were extremely adventurous. It's hard to categorize that music, really.
Right.
It had so many different influences, but it certainly made an impression on all of us. And great, Joe Zawinul,
Right.
fantastic player. Wayne Shorter, I mean, is just one of our role models. I mean, how could you not be influenced by the music of Weather Report, if you were
Right.
involved in any form of music whatsoever?
When just to add to that, when Weather Report came out, it was the jazz fusion era, and the bands like Mahavishnu and and Return to Forever, those were kind of very prominent. But Weather Report, they were different. They had a really melodic side. It wasn't as guitar,
Right.
driven, and I mean. And the compositions were, like a remark you made. I mean, these are like all-time great melodies. And so I think that really appealed to us, that, it wasn't this,
Right.
And I played with Jaco right when he left Weather Report. This was 1981. And, I sort of had exposure through working with him of that music. Jaco wrote some iconic songs, Teen Town, and for Weather Report, and of course, he made his own records, and I was on a couple of those, and so had exposure through playing with him.
Right.
But it's all connected somehow. You know, I mean, and I think in the Yellowjackets, we're not really thinking in terms of genre or what do we do, how do we play to, you know, I mean, we conceive of music, at least I do, in a way that seems like it would work well with the four of us interacting musically. That's kind of the focus, rather than what is the flavor of the day and
Sure.
how do we achieve success. I'm not concerned with that so very much. It's more like, what music do I really want to play with these guys?
Well, and that brings up a whole other thing of, you know, the music industry has changed so much in 40 years, but you guys are still very, very relevant. So probably because you're not chasing trends, you're doing your thing. It's very organic, and you're great musicians.
Yeah, I mean, if you cycle back to,
Oh, yeah. I'm starting to do the Bill Evans lean.
my, we're slouching.
I hear my mother talking about my posture.
So, yeah, I mean, we were talking about Coming Home Baby. The reason I picked that tune, it just popped into my head, but when I was 13, my folks took me to this little jazz workshop. You know, I'd walk in with my little clarinet, and that was one of the songs I learned when I was very young.
Yeah.
And it really stuck with me, and I thought it would just be really fun to arrange that tune
Right.
as an adult.
Now, I'm curious, you brought up Weather Report, just like the hearing that band back in those days, those albums coming out. And I'm curious, Russ, as a keyboard player, like, you know, in the Yellowjackets, you're playing acoustic piano, but as well as synths and that kind of stuff. So would Joe have been a major influence on you? Like, who were some of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Joe Zawinul, yeah. And probably, well, I really love acoustic jazz music. I mean, too, and so, of course, Herbie Hancock, Keith Jarrett, especially McCoy Tyner, and then, you know, I mean, the great musicians now, they're not so young anymore, Brad Mehldau.
Oh, sure.
And all of, you know, yeah, I mean, there's so many to name, but that music really was something that really rocked my world. And then it's like the synths with Yellowjackets, I guess the way we use them is maybe more like Weather Report in that they're more like orchestration and color. I don't really take synth solos or anything like that. I mean, very rarely. So it's more to just enhance the music and in the arrangement, just to have another place to go. Like Bob uses the iwi on certain tunes, and it adds just another dimension to an acoustic quartet. But essentially, we're trying to play like an acoustic quartet and have there be space and interplay.
Are you one of those guys that, you know, spends a lot of time doing sound programming for these projects, or you know?
A little bit, not a lot. I mean, I not from scratch, you know.
Right.
But that's kind of interesting. We're going to do a couple tours with Kurt Elling this year in Europe, and so in playing this Weather Report music. So I had to spend some time trying to find some things that were in that character. And
Okay.
yeah. But that's a whole nother world. It gives me a headache to spend too much time doing that.
Right. And so, in addition, you guys you're always involved in other things, and I know both you guys are involved in education. You're over at the Thornton School.
I was.
Okay.
I've retired.
So you did that for quite a few years, though. Huh?
16 years there, 23 years at Manhattan School of Music. I was at NYU before that, Rutgers before that.
Wow.
About 45 years total in the education.
Education.
What'd you learn?
What did I learn? A lot, actually. Yeah, I learned quite a bit.
Yeah, you learn a lot from teaching.
Yeah.
In addition to that, though, you're still with the WDR. You're directing the WDR band in Cologne. That's
Yes.
a fascinating band, an amazing band. So are you doing all the arranging with that?
There's a whole stable of people that work with the band in an arranging capacity and conducting soloist slots. And I'm called the chief conductor, but I'm there about 4 or 5 productions per year.
Okay.
But it's a lot. It's a lot of writing. It's 40 to 50 arrangements,
Right.
big band arrangements per year.
And you guys have been, I guess when Vince Mendoza was running it, y'all were guest artists.
Back in the '90s, but also we did a record with
did a
them when
yeah.
I was chief conductor called Jackets XL.
Okay. So who did the arrangements on that?
It was a combination.
Combination. Okay.
I think we did a couple of years, right?
We did one. I arranged
One
thing,
Russ and a couple of Vinces, and I
did the rest.
arranged some of the tunes, even some that Vince had done, but more in keeping with where the band was at that time.
Right. Was that kind of interesting for y'all to have the band in that context, in a more, I'm not going to say traditional, but just a
Yeah.
big band context?
Yeah, it was really fun, and through the years we've done a fair amount of that, but mainly because of Bob is such a wonderful arranger, and so occasionally we'll do performances with college big bands, and Will and I and Dane actually played on like at least 1 or 2 of your recordings as a rhythm section. Did Dane? I know
He didn't
Will-
play on the recording,
Oh, yeah.
but
We did some.
he's done some of the concerts.
Yeah.
And in terms of Yellowjackets and WDR Big Band, it was just this incredible marriage, these 2 entities that are, long-lasting, very tight-knit organizations. And I knew it was just going to be fantastic, and the energy
Right.
was just palpable. It was so great and easy. I mean, we just breezed through the music, recorded it all, and
It's a fantastic album.
thank you.
Well, and speaking of the album, just the album process for you guys. So when you're in the studio as the Yellowjackets, y'all are playing all this stuff down live, right? I mean,
Yes. Yeah. Whenever we record Yellowjackets music, we're playing. Yeah, we play together. And yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because the process can be very different nowadays.
Right.
People sending tracks and
Yeah,
whatnot. But,
that's right. I mean, I think individually we do some of that. People will contact
right.
Bob to play on a tune, or I've done a bit of that.
Right. Yeah.
I think one of the trademark qualities of this band is just the interactivity and the fact that it's really an ensemble, almost in a chamber music kind of way, but also with some grease. I mean, there's sort of the gospel, R&B, funk, straight ahead jazz thing involved, but it's about the ensemble. It's about listening and interacting,
Right.
and it's an awful lot of fun, and I think it translates into something people really can connect with.
Because y'all have been together now the Yellowjackets has existed for, 40 plus years now.
Yeah. Yeah. First recording came out in '81. We were playing gigs with the original Yellowjackets members. That was Robin Ford on guitar, Jimmy Haslip on bass, and a drummer, Ricky Lawson.
Right.
So that was like the latter 70s, 77, 78. So we kind of got started. Yeah,
That's something, well,
Yeah.
I know you guys are, but that's something to be truly proud of. I mean, just to have that kind of legacy and still doing it
Yeah,
and
you
do
know
it at
what's
a high level.
really funny is that I don't think, I mean, personally, I don't have that much of an awareness of the time that's passed. I mean, it's just, we love what we do, and we've just kept doing it and kind of looked up and wow, 4 decades have passed. But it's hard to believe. And I mean, I look around and you introduced us as legends or something. I mean, I'm no legend, but I mean I have my heroes, of course, and I still do, and that's kind of how I feel. These great musicians that we've all learned from.
Right.
That's and we're just on the path.
Right, right.
But it's interesting that this band that hasn't had a leader has persevered if you think about, we were talking about Mahavishnu, that was somewhat of a partnership band, although I'm not sure to what extent, but that band fell apart just because of differences of opinion. And, Weather Report, I think there was somewhat of a leader situation with Sal and Wayne Shorter, but this band has somehow made it through thick and thin, and regardless of the personnel, it just keeps going, which is kind of wild. I've not experienced that before. I mean, I've always either worked for leaders or been a leader myself. So this was a breath of fresh air, and kind of I'm amazed, that it works as well as it does.
Well, I guess just by the nature of it and the construct of it, it would take some of the pressure off. Like if you are a leader of a band and the onus is all with you, that can be difficult. But I would imagine it makes it more fun when you guys can come together and everyone's offering tunes, offering ideas, excited about just developing as musicians still.
Right.
Four heads are better than one.
Well, so when you're not doing this, like I know you have a trio album out. Do you enjoy playing in that setting a lot?
I do. I don't do it that often, but there's a few gigs every year that I'll do as a trio, and sometimes I invite Bob. We play quartet sometimes.
Right.
But that was just kind of like something that fell in my lap. The drummer who is on the recording, Steve Schaefer, is a really wonderful musician, more active in the studio world in Los Angeles. But he had a home studio he had just put together, and he wanted to kind of test out his equipment, kick the tires a little bit. So he invited me and bassist Michael Valerio, and we just started recording some stuff and felt good. And so
I enjoyed that album.
Thank
You put the tune on there I love, standard, How Deep is the Ocean.
Oh, cool.
My favorite tunes.
Thanks.
Great tune.
Thank you.
Well, so anything, I know you guys are going to be on tour, I think, late May, June, July in Europe.
Yeah.
Outside of the Yellowjackets, are you guys, excited about some projects coming up? Or
This year, I mean, for me, it's mostly Yellowjackets.
Yeah.
This is kind of the busiest year in a while. But I know Bob's got a lot of productions at WDR.
We're cranking them out. We just released a bluegrass record of all things.
Oh, really?
With the big band with Mike Marshall and Darrell Anger, two really important people in the bluegrass scene. And I arranged a bunch of music from that genre, and
that had to be a little different, right?
It was very different, but great. It really turned out beautifully, I think. So that's out on the MCG label. What else? I did another recording with the band that's due to come out at some point called Very Personal. Oh gosh, there's a lot going on over there. I mean, we keep putting out records, and we're doing something with a young Scottish tenor player in April named Matt Carmichael, sort of Scottish folk music meets jazz big band. And June is Chico Pinheiro, Brazilian guitar player. September is Leonardo Luecki and Dave Holland.
Oh, sure.
December is Dave Stryker, guitar player that I work
great
with
guitar
sometimes.
player. Yeah.
Just did a big band tour with the WDR over here in the States. We played outside of Chicago and New York and Pittsburgh. So, it's a lot on.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but it's good. It keeps you out of trouble, keeps you focused on something positive. It inspires people, hopefully, and brings people together.
Bob, I'm curious, this stage of your career, because you've been known, everybody thinks of you as a tenor player, but also you double on so many instruments. Bass, clarinet. You said you started on clarinet, flute. Do you still keep all of that up?
No,
you don't.
I've really, in many ways, tried to narrow my scope to focus on just a few things rather than so many. I mean, the doubler affliction, as I call it, is requires a lot of time and effort to keep the flutes saxophones and clarinets going, which is something I did for a long while. But these days I'm just enjoying playing tenor, occasional bass clarinet, and the electronic wind instrument.
Right. Awesome. Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being here, doing this. Again, this is a personal thrill for me because I listen to you guys all the time, have for many years. I'm excited about the concert tonight. I'm pretty sure you guys have a sold-out house.
Oh, great.
So it's going to be a energetic crowd. And, it's a nice venue. Hopefully, y'all enjoy the venue. But just again, thank you, and
Thank you.
wishing you guys the best.
Yeah, thanks.
The Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge would like to acknowledge our generous sponsors, the Shell Corporation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, and the City of Baton Rouge.